This is Karen with newclevelandradio.net, and it is time for Avoid the Maze, You Are Special. Now, there's Avoid the Maze, Your Journey Through Life, and there's Avoid the Maze, You Are Special. And my guest today, Jessica Spear, is special because she is writing on subjects about things that are so important. And I wish I had found an author like you when I was growing up because I was convinced I was the black sheep no matter where I went. In fact, my elementary school class has reunions fairly regularly. And the first one I went to was 20 years after elementary school. And I walked in believing that nobody liked me, that I truly was the black sheep. And I walked in and people were hugging me and welcoming me and so glad to see me and remembering things about me that I did not remember. And I walked away from there thinking, is it me or is it them? And then I went to one at the 40-year reunion and it was like, they still remember all these nice things about me. And that was part of when my journey started when I said, okay, I got to go back and think about that. Did they say those things about me or did I say them about myself? And so when I read some of the stuff that you're putting out there, I love this one, Girl's Guide to Happy Friendships in Middle School. I wish I had
hmm
had that, Jessica. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what brought you to writing these and how are you using them to help the youth and the parents of today?
Oh, and thanks for having me, Karen, and sharing that story. I love it. And it's so true. Before I dive into my background, I just have to say research shows that what we think other people are thinking is often wrong. Like it's just wrong. So let's just get that out there. We are often wrong of our what other people perceive us to be. So my name is Jessica Spear. I've got a background in social sciences. I've also got two daughters, and when they were hitting elementary school, I started to notice that their friendships got a lot more challenging. And so that as a social scientist and as a mom, that really piqued my curiosity. So I started a friendship program in elementary schools to help kids with some basic social skills. But to go back to your story, while
Yeah.
I was running this program, one of the things that was so interesting to me was once I got girls, and it was actually the program was not just for girls, it was for everybody. Mostly girls showed up. That's a whole different topic, but mostly girls came. But what I noticed consistently is their shoulders dropped once they saw, oh, look who else is here. I thought I was the only one.
Sure.
So you're just having them together, just having them share their experience. That alone was healing to them. But I also realized, oh, there's little things that we can learn together as a group that will help them. So that grew into my first book, which has got this funky title. It's called BFF, which stands for Best Friends Forever, or NRF, which stands for Not Really Friends, a girl's guide to happy friendships. And that grew out of that program. And I write for kids that are like 7 to 13. So it's for that age range that things are really starting to change, and they're starting to really grow into themselves and question their identity and start to build their interests and skills and personalities. So it's interactive. It's filled with quizzes, and fun stuff for self-awareness, but also a lot of real stories because I think it's once they see it's not just them. It makes a big difference, and then I kept going. I've got two other books that I've put out since then. But I just love speaking to this age group in a very authentic way about the things that they're struggling with in their day-to-day lives, which these days, for that age group is often their social world and their digital world.
Oh, digital world. That's a whole other conversation in itself. So it's interesting because as heard you talking about this age group, the first elementary school I went to from kindergarten to through third grade, I had lots of friends. In fact, I had a lot of friends on the street that we lived on. It was a neighborhood where everybody was inclusive. Um, we moved when went into fourth grade, and uh, of course, I missed all my friends that I moved away from. I wasn't that far away, but at my age, it was too far for me just to walk over and go play with them. And I knew some of the kids in my new school. And so I know I did make friends, but I felt like from the first day walking in that either I was going to be this new kid and everybody was going to love me, or I was going to be the new kid and everybody was going to dislike me. And for some reason, I came home crying that day, thinking I had no friends. And now that I look back at it all those years, I had friends, but
Yeah.
yet I didn't know that's who they were. I wanted what I thought I saw everybody else having. So what's it like with today's young kids that like you said, they have a digital world and they have a real world. Do they know the difference between real friendships and digital friendships?
Through conversations they do, and this is a stage of life that, to get back to the focus of your podcast, where a lot of conversations are helpful to help kids know what a good, healthy friendship looks and feels like and what's not. And they can have, good, healthy friendships in both arenas. I'm not going to discount what's happening in the digital world. At this younger age, that tends not to be happening as much. But coming into middle school, sometimes there are some meaningful friendships that form online. But in elementary school, it still tends to be much more in person. But helping kids start to notice which of their friendships feel really safe and accepting. And that's actually friendship truth number. I've 9 friendship truths in that first book. That's friendship truth number 1 is our healthiest friendships feel safe and accepting, but knowing that that's not going to be the norm because everybody at this stage of life and actually throughout life, we're all working on these friendship skills, right? So there's
Right.
going to be a lot of friendships that maybe we realize, okay, this is a friendship that maybe I just want to maybe not share this this private information about myself, or so we just kind of get a sense of that, but we can help them notice which one of these friendships feel really good, and that's maybe where I want to put my energy to cultivate this friendship, and realizing what part we play in that too. Friendship is always a two-way street.
So are you finding in today's society that parents are participating in that selection of friends? Because I know when I was growing up, my parents did. There were certain people that my mother would say to me, you know, you don't have to be their friend, which never made any sense to me. It's like, well, they want to sit at the same lunch table with me. What do you want me to do? Ignore them? And my mother would say, no, but if you can go sit at another lunch table. Now, later in years, when I brought that up to her, of course, she forgot she ever said anything like that. Um, but that did direct me a lot of times as to, even as a young adult, choosing who I was going to be with. So, what's it like
Mhm.
for young kids today?
And it depends actually on the neighborhood, and the community. So in some communities, parents are very involved in that, and putting, making play dates with, the kids that they want to make sure to cultivate friendships. In some, that doesn't happen at all. So it's really diverse depending on neighborhoods and schools, what's happening on the ground. I do see that, by the end of elementary school, kids actually definitely want parents to back off. They want to take the lead in choosing, the friends that they're choosing. But I love the point that you brought up as, sometimes as caregivers, we might say, oh, just don't be friends with them. However, like you said,
Yeah.
they might have to sit next to you in class every day. They ride the bus every day. So that is really difficult. So what I usually encourage parents to make kids realize is that we are not going to like everybody the same, but somehow we have to figure out how to navigate them, in kind ways, in kind, respectful ways. And if you think about it, moving fast forward 20 years down the line, this is a skill that we use in the workplace, right? We don't maybe love every single one of our coworkers, but we are kind and respectful because we know we have to spend time with them every single day. So, the earlier we can talk to kids about that, just and realizing that it's actually much more complex. They can't just sometimes not be friends with somebody because they're going to see them next week and I'm at that birthday party. So just teaching them how to navigate these situations that are a little tricky in a way that they feel, good about themselves, and they're being kind and respectful.
So do you notice that in the schools, them encouraging kids to be more inclusive with each other? Because when my youngest son was going to school, um, he was diagnosed as high functioning autistic. So his teachers would separate the kids in the classroom. These are the lower functioning kids. These are higher. These are middle. Oh, these kids are neurotypical. And he would come home in tears saying to me, why am I being separated? He said, I can work on a book report with anybody in the classroom, but yet I have to stick with, as he used to call it, my kind.
Hmm.
And, I mean, he's become an advocate that there's no such thing as my kind. It's our kind. We're all together. So, do you see teachers helping bring kids together more in the classroom to cultivate friendships?
And this again depends to school and even teacher to teacher. Some schools have a really beautifully integrated social emotional development learning program in their schools, and it guides the culture of the school and the classrooms. And some schools are not quite there yet, and so they don't have that foundation to fall upon. So what I do see happening is very, very different. So I do, if somebody is entering a new area, I would really go check out and tour some schools and see what are you feeling in these schools? What are you hearing said over and over by multiple staff people and the principal, and what does their website look like? So I think parents can kind of on the front end take a look and see where is my child going to school, and make sure it's a good fit for your child. And your family, because like everywhere, some places do this really well and some don't do it as well, unfortunately.
Well, and today we do sort of have our choices where we can send our kids to school. More so when I was growing up, this was your neighborhood school, this is where you went. I don't know of anybody who was homeschooled back in my day. Um, I know that my parents paid a tuition to send my brother to a different junior high school. Um, but typically, wherever you lived, that's where you went to school. That was the culture that you lived in. So what you had on the street basically was what you had in your classroom. Um, but in your bio, and I love this, the difference between BFF and NRF. So
Mhm.
many of us feel it's so important to have a BFF that we call just about everybody our BFF. How do you help younger individuals understand that there really is a difference, that not
Yeah.
everybody's going to be your best friend?
Yeah. And and I love so many kids are so open, and I love that they're just so embracing of the BFF. So and I that's why I threw it in the title of the book, because I knew kids would connect with that. And I made up the NRF, not really
Oh,
friends. And I
sure. Yeah.
I made it up because I didn't want to throw it under the label of mean girl. I didn't want to say bully. I just didn't want to throw it under any label that already has, something attached to it. But how I describe NRF is, maybe a friend that's nice to you sometimes, but really mean to you other times, and maybe untrustworthy. Maybe there's been some big breaches of trust between you and this friend. Maybe this friend makes you feel really uncomfortable being who you are. So I'd like to point that out, because sometimes kids realize, oh my gosh, I'm behaving like an NRF in this situation. So I think it's okay to be explicit and clear, because I also say that sometimes we do behave like this, and this is not the friend that we want to be either. So just pointing out that these are the behaviors that makes this friendship feel like a not really friend, but there's a caveat, but be cautious and doing the best they can with the skills they got. So, this friendship might not be right for you right now because it feels like this, but you never know. In a few years, as everybody's growing and changing, that might be a different story. And I've loved seeing this with my own daughters. They had some friendships in elementary school that I thought, oh, this one's going to go the distance. This is such a great friendship. And then, life changes, people change, things change, and then, maybe they grew apart, but they in high school, maybe they came back together as teammates, or maybe they came back together because they're on a club together. So, another friendship truth that I share with kids is friendship has to have different phases and change over time. So just knowing that that's normal. There's nothing about you. There's nothing wrong with you. It's just the nature of friendships. They have different phases and change over time. And that's another thing. You're like, oh, good. Okay. And it makes it a little easier. Friendship changes are always hard, but that takes a little bit of the sting out of it. Know that actually is a pretty common phenomena.
Well, and that happens to all of us, even as we become adults.
Hmm.
Um, One of the things that triggered me in your bio is that when I was working in corporate America, there was another woman that I was working with. And there was just something about her initially that I just felt uncomfortable around her. Um, Other people seemed to be semi-drawn to her. I won't say that, that she was everybody's best friend or coworker, but I really tried to avoid her because there was something just triggering me. And probably a year into working together, I was going to lunch one day and I saw her and I just said to her, "Are you going to XYZ restaurant?" And she said, "Yes." I said, "Would you like me to join you?" And she said, "Sure." We became work buddies. It was just incredible. Whatever that thing that I felt it because I wasn't communicating, and neither was she. Once we started talking to each other, we were inseparable. And I tried to share this with some of my clients who tell me, "Oh, I'm working with somebody and I don't think they like me." Well, they may not. So first of all, how does that make you feel? And it's not your choice if they like you or not. Okay. That's their choice to make if they don't want to like you. But if you had a conversation, and usually it stems back to the same things that I went through. No, I really haven't because I feel uncomfortable. Well, maybe step out of your comfort zone and find out if the person doesn't like you or the two of you are not meant to be friends. It's okay.
Hmm.
But you have to learn to accept that and not carry that negative like I did in elementary school.
Yeah, and you give some time and space to see what that person is really about. And I often reference the summer camp phenomena. So some of us, as kids and kids today still go to, sleepaway camps, and and often what happens is some great friendships form over that whatever week, a month, however long it is. And part of that is they are spending so night and day together, night and day, and fun things and challenging things and really getting to know each other deeply. So at the beginning of camp, they might have those insecurities or those thoughts about others, but by the end, they've spent so much time together that they're overlooking that. They actually see the person underneath that, and they realize that their perceptions might not have been right about that person in the first place. So yeah, I love that you mentioned that because it often is getting beyond that point, where there are those insecurities or those assumptions we're making about this person. If we can get beyond that, often, there's a great friendship or relationship underneath that.
So what is the reaction you're getting from your books from kids that they're either being read to them or they're reading them?
Oh, it's so I still love to meet with friendship groups and I do that. In fact, a lot of schools use that book in their school for friendship groups. So there might be a school counselor and she might be pulling in six girls that might be having, or even it could be boys too, having some struggles, and they basically follow the book, and I pop in, and I just love to hear because it's that process that's happening. First, they're realizing it's not just them. Two, they're learning how to deal with the people in their life that they might be having some difficulties with. And three, it's in a safe space. I was at a group last week at one of my local schools, and this girl in the group said, "I just love coming here. I just feel my shoulders relax, and I just feel so happy in this group." So, I mean, that just makes my heart sing. And I think what she's telling us is, in this circle, she doesn't feel alone. She feels seen, she feels heard, she feels accepted. And so to me, I'm like, that's exactly why I wrote this book, is for kids to feel seen and heard and accepted.
And you wrote it for kids, but I'm going to tell you, seniors need this book as well. I belong, I belong to a group online, and I hear the heartache and the sadness from people who will say, you know, they've lost their family, they lost their friends, they don't know how to go out and make new friends, or they don't think the people in their living environment are their friends. And it takes me back to when my mother moved into assisted living. She knew a lot of people living there, but she went in kicking and screaming, I'm okay, I can stay in my place. And we said to her, but you'll have your own place. You have your own apartment. You can cook your own meals. Don't worry about that. But you'll be in a secure place that if you want to make new friends. And for the first couple of weeks, yeah, she didn't want to make any friends. But when she finally started coming out and meeting with people, she kept saying there's something lacking. She said, we all come together, but none of us really talk to each other. And so I said to her, you've always been good at leading a group. Next time you're sitting in a group, just say, hey, why don't we go around and just introduce ourselves? Because probably you don't all even know each other's names. And she started doing that. And she called me one day and she goes, I'm making a lot of friends here.
Oh.
And I thought, that's really, really good. And I said, so how are you doing it? And she goes, oh, it was so simple. She said, I came up with this idea. I love it. Came up with this idea. I was sitting in a group and I said to the ladies there, why don't we just all introduce ourselves? And I said, I wonder where you got that one from. And she goes, oh, I thought it up. And I said, okay, it's fine. But in the senior communities, so many have this teenage girl and teenage boy, mentality that they have no friends, nobody likes them, and they're the only ones who are sitting in this room feeling lonely. So
And I love that. It is a skill that we have to practice. And I love that you say that because it reminds me that we have to remember later in life too. When I work with kids, we do role plays how to make a new friend. And I found that kids in this age group, they love to try to act it out. If they're in with a group of friends or a caregiver that you know, they feel comfortable with, they'll love to practice this. And sometimes it takes practice. They might not have any idea how to walk up to somebody and say hi and start a conversation, by asking a question. So that's a skill that we teach kids over time, and it takes some practice and it takes a little bit of courage. But once they get it, it's so helpful to them to start to meet some new friends.
well, I love the idea of these friendship groups because I've never heard of them before. I wish my son had had that when he was growing up. That would have been fantastic for him, even though he was a very outgoing child until he was diagnosed at 6.5 of being on the autism spectrum. And then everybody, like pointed at him instead. He now is back to his very outgoing self and makes friends very easily. So I guess we did a few things right while he was growing up.
Oh, wow.
How can my listeners find your books and maybe get more information about starting a friendship group in their school?
Sure. Sure. Well, my books, they are available anywhere books are sold. So if you search them on Target or Barnes and Noble or Amazon, and I always encourage people to request them at their local bookstores because I think local bookstores are just treasures that I want to, keep supporting
I
because
agree.
They are safe spaces for kids too. So I feel like any safe space that our kids can go to in our local communities, bookstores is one of those. It's one of my faves. But or my website. So if you go to Jessica Speer, which is SPEER.com, that's got information about all my books, but I also write a lot of articles for parents and caregivers and teachers who are trying to help their kids in all these arenas, trying to help them learn friendship skills or to feel confident in themselves or to, navigate their devices in safe ways. So there's a lot of information on my website too. So you're welcome to find me and those resources there too.
Well, and I think it's going to help a lot of the parents improve their skills as well and not feel as isolated. So, hey, parents, when you're teaching your kids, teach yourself a little bit too, and let's make it a kinder, friendlier world. I love it.
Yeah. Oh, and I forgot to answer your question about the group. Okay, so if if you think you would like to lead a group, you don't actually need training. I mean, I wrote the book in a way that any leader could lead a group and you just follow it through, or you could buy a set or get a set from the library for the school and have the school counselor or someone at the school lead a group of kids. So it's really straightforward, no training required. I just encourage any group leaders to make sure any kids that want to join are welcome, and you try your very best to create a safe space. So at the beginning, setting some rules that, anything we share in this group is private and safe. So just kind of making sure it's a very safe group that meets on a regular basis. And usually they meet maybe 6 or 8 times to get through the book. But anybody can do that. And it's often so helpful to the kids involved, but also to the leader. I think the leader grows from the experience too.
I love that. I love that. In fact, I'm thinking of somebody who would be wonderful at it. And I'm probably going to give her a call after this podcast and talk to her about it. So thank you so much, Jessica. I appreciate you being with us. All Jessica's information will be in the show notes. So don't worry about if you miss something because it will be there. And let's follow up with her. And I think we need more friendship groups. So I'm on it.
I
Thanks,
agree.
Jessica. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Karen.
Thank you.